It's your host, Dylan Conroy, back with another edition of the Ad Podcast. And today we have Spencer Finch, who is the founder of Rise Executive Partners out of St. George / Hurricane, Utah. And Spencer has been a executive in the experiential side of the tour operations business in the travel sector for many years. Very successfully built up a off-road tour operations company. I'm forgetting the name off the top of my head. What was the name of
Yeah, it's Mad Moose, and then
Mad
the full name is just Mad Moose Rentals and Tours because we do all of it. Yeah.
So after successfully building and scaling that tour operation, Spencer decided to launch Rise Executive Partners, which is a coaching program and consulting business that helps other tour operators grow and scale their business. Spencer, thanks so much for coming on the show, man. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. It was fun to be at Arrival and make a ton of connections. And like you mentioned, I'm all about the tour and attraction space. Like that's where I spend most of my days, is just helping people have fun. Like that's what I'm passionate about. So yeah, excited to be here.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think, we talked a little bit about it off camera. This was my first Arrival conference. And I think what I was most struck by was, the quality of the folks that I met who are operators. I expected it to be a little bit more fragmented than other portions of the travel industry that I have dived into because, it's a lot of SMBs. But at the end of the day, a lot of the operators that I met, folks who are successful AI, engineers or SaaS salespeople or big corporate C-suite folks in corporate America or in kind of small to medium-sized businesses. But a lot of people who had that entrepreneurial spirit, they wanted to be their own boss. They wanted to make their own schedule. They wanted to get out from behind a desk. And they wanted to do something that they were passionate about. So I was very impressed by the caliber of people that I met. So with that in mind, would love to hear a little bit about your origin story and why you decided to launch the tour originally and then launch your coaching and consulting business. Because I noticed that you had a bit of a similar path. You started off on the tech side.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that like right out of college, it kind of dawned on me like, hey, let's get to a point where we can have our own business and, not work for anybody else. But yeah, right out of school, like I did sales, I did marketing, I graduated in marketing with a minor in entrepreneurship. So moving from that, it was that time when Airbnb was just getting started and people were renting out their vacation homes or like rooms, right? Back then it was rooms and you kind of cared about seeing the person. And now you want an Airbnb that's like, I want the remote lock. I don't want to see anyone. I just want to go and just have a good time.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I started with building a website where you could rent out your own stuff to each other. And it was before I think people were comfortable with that idea. Like there was still they were worried and scared about renting out their own stuff. So I ended up just buying a lot of my own stuff and started renting it out. And so that there was something on the marketplace. And I moved back down to Southern Utah. I was like, okay, we're just going to rent out our own stuff. So pivoted and moved to that space and started, with 6 paddle boards, bought them off of a credit card and started renting those out. And I think it's interesting because I went right into it before getting like a corporate job or anything like that, besides like a sales job. But the interesting thing about the tourism space from 2019 until now is it's been like this massive roller coaster of like repeated lessons, going into uncertainty and then having a lot of high season when, people were stuck inside, then everybody wanted to go outside. Southern Utah didn't really follow the rules. So people came here to explore, like Vegas was closed. So everyone came to St. George. So having those highs and then getting back to a low point, you learn so much about business, especially when it comes to sales and marketing and staffing. So I think that's where you see a lot of random skill sets with tour and attraction operators is they have no choice but to figure out like a lot of creative ways to get people to their business. Um, and you're doing it so often, right? Like even for Mad Moose, our tour and rental company, depending on the location, like we're 80%, non-repeat business. 20% of people come back, but we're earning that 80% um, time over time. And so you basically need to diversify like a massive sales channel strategy. So that way, if one sales channel disappears, you're still doing a baseline of business that's still profitable at the end of the year.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
love
that's
that.
like getting into it. That's where I'm at now. So
No, I love that. I was literally just, I talked about that book that I was reading, and it talked about the 2016 kind of Google SEO crash where, things that worked in SEO all of a sudden didn't. And a lot of businesses got, put out of business, because of an algorithm change. Then you think about 2018 when we had Facebook and Apple divorce each other from a data perspective. iOS 14, another huge targeting issue that leaves you at the whims of big tech giants for your marketing strategy and channels. We somehow avoided Google getting rid of the cookie and replacing it with whatever it was going to do. They kind of decided to not do that, which is interesting, after all this buildup and anticipation and people trying to brace and figure out what was next. So the book that I was reading was really talking about the idea of like, you got to diversify your channels. It's as simple as that. You got to not be dependent for more than 5% of your revenue in one given marketing channel. What do you think about that idea? It sounds like you're kind of already on that wavelength to
yeah,
some.
I mean, and the interesting part is it's that small, right? Like you would love to have 50% of your business be from a specific channel, and even our direct business. And I was running these reports recently because we're going to the Fair Harbor Spark conference in New Orleans next week, and the topic is online travel agencies. So it's just a matter of like even these referrer companies like Get Your Guide, Invite, or you've got to, you want to win that direct business first because it pays out the most. And so you're balancing that as well, like not just the channels, but who's going to pay me the most first. And you're balancing out your marketing budget because a lot of tour and attraction companies, to your point, like they have about 5 to 8% of their revenue that they should be spending on marketing. Some people aren't spending any money on marketing, but that 5 to 8% rule has been somewhat standard for myself and for other large companies I've talked to. Unless we're growing like a specific new product that we're launching, then you're 15% or something on that specific thing. But overall, sales channels, yeah, are super important. We saw that with Airbnb this year specifically in the tourism industry, where they had the experiences, they shut it off, and now they're revamping so you can get back on that channel. And another book that I'm reading that I'll reference is Day Trading Attention by Gary Vee. And it's
Oh,
the couple of principles I pulled from that was like, we don't hold any sales channel on a pedestal, just like in social media, like you shouldn't hold any like platform on a pedestal. Use it when it has attention. And if it shuts down, get off it, pivot, go somewhere else, but get back on it if it opens back up. Like don't hold any bad sentiments. Like if you're getting sales and customers, like keep it going,
no,
So
I love that. One of the things that struck me from this conference is that, you've got this incredibly fragmented operator space that are doing really good marketing in the social side of things. I think because everything that these tour operators do is inherently social. Like if you just turn on the camera and film what you're doing, there's a reason people come and they want to experience what you're doing and
yeah,
create content for their own, digital passport book, to get their stamp on their Instagram profile with a reel. So you've got a bunch of really great owned and operated content coming from either like UGC or influencers or from the employees. And then, but then you've got these OTAs that are really smart media buyers who are probably sitting at the bottom of the funnel and just hoovering up a lot of those leads because they know how to buy maybe better, faster, more efficiently in the performance channels. They also do it at such scale that they have relationships with the platforms that are a lot more tight from a partnerships perspective than a lot of the operators. So how do you keep yourself from like building your own brand awareness and building the category and not allowing the OTAs to just kind of get last click attribution or get the get the credit for it, I suppose?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question because the balance needs to be there. And for us, we definitely focused on the direct channels first, and our pathway to that was a lot of good content, making sure that we were, listed anywhere and everywhere that was relevant, and then honing in our Google ads. Like we've definitely seen the value as far as like building up our Google ads platform, finding partners that can run those campaigns. I mean, to me, it makes sense to run your own campaign until you're spending about $1,500 a month in the tourism industry. That's kind of what I recommend to people because you can pay attention to it when you have time. But once you scale up your business and you have a budget that's higher than that, like it's time to hand it off. Let somebody run those paid ad campaigns for you, like an agency, and it's well worth that percentage because there's still not enough revenue to hire on like a full-time marketing guru. For that cost, like of getting someone qualified, you might as well pay a percentage to, an agency to run those that has that relationship with Google and is an A1M1 corporation that's just makes your spend go further. So we really focused on that. And now with a lot of booking platforms getting smarter about it, they have affiliate tools where on certain weekends, we're only allowing direct bookings. On weekdays, we're allowing OTAs to fill in. So now it's just a balance of trading off availabilities. So you'll see from the OTA side, they're really pushing like we want full availability. We want price parity in our channels. And you kind of have to play both sides. Like, yeah, you want that, but only certain days and times that makes sense. Because when we have slower seasons, we're heading into November, December in St. George, and it cools off and there's less travelers. And what people don't know is it's kind of like the best time to ride off road because it's 70 degrees and not 100.
Yeah. I was telling you, I like to come there for spring break in April, which has been great.
Yeah, April's perfect. Yeah, April's like right on. So yeah, and basically the opposite side of that is October and November. So we definitely rely more on OTA channels in those seasons than in the summer. And it's super important to be okay with running those products and those customers at a lower margin. As long as you know your numbers, right? Like what your costs are and what you can send people out for. So yeah, when it comes to OTAs, the way to compete there is to have really good products on the OTAs. And we haven't seen like too many, like if somebody's smart enough in the USA to see the products, but they book direct because it's easier, like they're not pulling out these apps where somebody coming from a foreign country like Germany, they rely on these apps to give them all the info necessary and they're more catered to them. So we do see a different demographic coming from OTAs than we do direct. So we don't really worry too much about the competition. But we've seen like big companies, it's about that 80-20 rule that you want, like 80% direct and 20% OTA. So you don't want that to get thrown out of whack on either end, I guess,
Yeah.
So.
No, that's smart. So you talked about agency partners from a media buying perspective, at least. And you talked about a threshold in which you think it's smart to pass the baton over to a media buyer, that $1,500 a month spend. Do you work with agencies that are endemic specialists for the tourism operator experience space, or is it okay to pick an agency that doesn't have that endemic experience?
I mean, it kind of comes down to just how aware the operator is. If there's no background in marketing, they might be putting their ad spend on months when it's really busy, but that's like no purchases are being made, right? So we take a look at our partners and we go into their booking software and say, here's when people are booking the ride and here's when people are actually riding the rides. So make sure your ad spend matches up with purchases rather than just when it feels busy. So I think the best thing to do is, if you have no idea what to do in marketing, you can rely on most any company to make it happen for you. Like the biggest thing is, do they have a great relationship with Google? Is your money going to go further with them? And what's their fee, right? Like you want somebody, you don't want to pay somebody too little because they're probably not very good at it. So you want to pay enough to where like, hey, this is a legit partner. They know what they're doing. They're not just going to turn on a Performance Max campaign and not look at it again. So our cadence, I mean, I can share what we do with Mad Moose. Like we have them run our Google ads. We have a set budget for every month of the year, and it follows purchases. We definitely work at we try not to drop our budget by like 50% one month to the next month. Like we try and tear it down or up so we're not throwing off the algorithm. Yeah, and we find a really good partner on Google Ads. Social, I like to keep in-house because it just is so quick. Like getting on certain topics that are relevant, like getting the attention out there. I like to run my own social campaigns still just because I love marketing. And so I like the idea of getting onto TikTok and doing the Spark campaigns, like the new stuff they've launched. But yeah, when it comes to AdWords, it's all about understanding keywords, campaigns, and bid strategy. So they have been getting more expensive this year, I've noticed. So that's, give or take, it could be just the market right now. But also like you just never want to drop off of that. Like Google is so good. It's always been really, really good for a big chunk of spend, Yeah.
You mentioned keyword costs going up with Google. Are you experimenting with TikTok search now that it's the largest search engine for Gen Z and Gen Alpha?
I mean, I'm probably slower to get onto it because I haven't run ads on TikTok. Most of our age demographic, you've got to be 21, 25 plus to run a boat because we do boats and jet skis. So it's important to understand the age demographic of who's visiting. If I was doing food tours, walking tours, sure, So since we're doing, motorized vehicles that require them to be 21 or older if they have kids, we're still going really strong and doing really well on Instagram. I think that demographic is growing in TikTok. I just haven't seen that be the case just in daily conversations for our demographic. Like Utah's interesting. There's not a lot of Twitter users. Like we don't do Twitter in Southern Utah, which is weird. Right? So it's just like the demographic is so important. Like going to a big company or an ad agency and saying, hey, can you give me some like research or information on my area? Like what are people using? And where are they at and how old are they if they're on those platforms? Like that insight is so important. And you can't really get that just by, you can kind of tell, but you can't really get that by being a small tour and attraction operator. So once you are committing more spend, like you got to get smarter about how you're putting it out there. So
yeah, you got to leverage the fact that you're cutting a nice check to somebody.
Yeah, I mean, and it's worth it. You're getting the business, and you're getting, especially in downturns, like you're getting market share, right? A lot of companies stop, and if you keep going, like that's why we have such a big market share here in Southern Utah. Is we've just never stopped for the last 7-8 years. Like there's always something dedicated for that, even through COVID or downtimes or pause times. Like we just keep going, so we're top of mind. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you can make it during hard times, then the good times will be easy. I'm sure that's a quote that I'm butchering from somewhere.
Yeah, it sounds like an awesome quote. Yeah, and then when the OTAs come into play, like I understand that I can't compete on a national level, so most of my budget goes to in destination, close, definitive marketing where I can win. Right. I know people are coming from Northern Utah. I know they're coming from San Diego. San Diego is actually our top place of travelers. So there you go. Thank you.
I'm in the demo. 10 hours. It's so easy.
It's close, right? So yeah, but when I try and compete like internationally, like I think of all the OTA people that came and visited just recently, one from Germany, one from France, one from India, one from Connecticut. Like these are far away distances where I'm not going to have the bandwidth or the budget, like you mentioned, to, or the team that's dedicated to like throw up a bunch of display ads all over different blogs and weather channels. Like
Yeah.
that's where the OTAs get really good.
That makes sense. All right. So we've covered a little bit of your experience as an operator. I want to get into Rise Partners. So, what possessed you to decide to launch another business on top of an already thriving tour business where you're now taking the things that you've learned from scaling your tour and now helping others? What made you decide to go that direction?
Yeah, to me, it got to a point where, I'm now in a position with Mad Moose where I'm in a founder mode position. So what's required of me is our all staff meetings once a month and once a week with our directors. And they do a really, really good job at managing Mad Moose. So, the time opened up to where it was like, well, I can go start more locations and do it, go down that path. And then the word impact just kept coming to my mind. Like I wanted to make the biggest impact possible because I think that goes along with the law of reciprocity, right? Like the more impact, the more people I can help, the better. And I found that the quickest way to do that was to partner with like existing tour and attraction companies. I was lucky enough to have the education mixed with the tour and attraction business. And like you mentioned, a lot of people do this. Maybe they retire and it's a side hustle, or they just got into it because they're passionate about it. And I know the road comes to an end where you start to say, okay, this is great. I'm passionate about it. I also want to spend time with my family.
Mhm.
Your kids start growing up and they say, okay, well, I want my time back. And my goal is to help them scale their business to a point where they can create that position in the org chart that allows them to work on the business instead of like in
Mhm.
the day-to-day operations. And that allows them to move the needle, allows them to give time back with their family. And I just saw that being the biggest impact. So we started Rise. My partner Shelby, she was involved in Madness as well. And we both decided, hey, let's go help scale businesses because that's what I get excited about. I grew up playing board games and I like winning and I like the board game. So like put me in a new market, give me a tour and attraction company and like let's go own the space. Like let's go
That's
find people and help them have fun too. So like you win on both sides.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, you've obviously proven that you could get out of the rat race, so to speak, and have your business be somewhat on a flywheel to where you're, showing up for 5 hours a month and it's basically running. And then, on top of that, there's, you've spent your life's work doing something and kind of getting to that perpetual finishing line and what's next and what are you going to do. So it makes sense why you decided to go in this direction. So tell me about what you guys do at Rise from a marketing perspective. I know that you are a full service consultant to a lot of these tour operators, but my audience is very much interested in the marketing side. So, what do you do to help them get better at their marketing? What would be kind of a standard approach for maybe the first 30 days or so?
Yeah. Um, it's super relevant to the tour and attraction space. I mean, it's marketing and advertising is so important. And then vision, like a lot of these people get into the business, it's the passion project. So we pull them out of the weeds and we say, okay, like let's develop a roadmap for the next, 3 to 5 years based on your goals. Like, are we going to sell the business? Are we going to keep the business forever? Like, let's find out what that goal is and then work back from that. And when it comes to like the marketing and sales aspect, um, a lot of them, I would say, like it's just natural in the tourism industry to be somewhat reactive. Like people are there having fun, they ask for new product. You're like, okay, let's develop this new product, start selling it. And somebody else asked for this, and so you end up with this kind of weird realm of all these random products. Um, and it's important to take a step back and actually build like the brand, like you said. So,
Mm.
you know, taking time with the owner and sitting down and saying, okay, remember why you started this? Like, let's develop the brand. And we come up with like, what's the North Star for the company? What's like your non-negotiable belief? You know, who are your customer types? Like, you've had all these people, like, let's find out where we need to spend our time to get the most amount of money out of it. Like, which customer type do we make the most off of and has the best experience? Like, let's do more of that. Or we hone in their different customer types or help them find like a new one. And those are kind of like in line with sales channels. So for our company, we started out with just rentals, right? And then we found out, man, there's this whole tour business. And then we launched tours, and now 50% of our revenue is tours, and it's trending to be higher.
Wow.
We found out people want to have their own experiences, so we create curated, self-guided experiences. They don't even care about the machine; they just want to go see top of the world. They just want to go see the waterfall. So if you cater it the right way in front of that customer, they're more apt to buy. So yeah, from a branding perspective, it's super important for them to build the brand up. And on one side, it's for the customers. On the other side, it's for themselves because as a tour and activity operator or owner, your identity is tied to the business like crazy. Like you are the business. Like this is Spencer's Adventure Company, right? And it's kind of an emotional thing to like detach yourself from that because you're the one guiding, you're the one there with the customers, and it's like a real emotion that comes up, and we have to break that and say, in order to scale this business, like Mad Moose needs to be Mad Moose, and it needs to have its own policies and org chart. And it's no longer like Spencer wants to hire this person or fire this person, or here's, you know, Spencer got mad at me and whatever. Like it all comes from the business. So like that brand, helping it stand on its own operationally, lets the owner kind of disconnect from that being like his identity or her identity. So kind of interesting on both sides, like breaking the brand to stand on its own um, helps both the owner, but it also helps the customers because they're reconnecting and re-engaging with the brand. Like let's say the owner goes away and he hasn't done that yet, or she hasn't done that yet, then the company dies, right?
Mm.
So really getting a brand out there that can stand on its own, that people can identify with and come back to. Yeah, it's a big deal. It was interesting. It was something I stumbled on just because I had to go through it, right? Like
Mm.
I had to detach from Mad Moose, and it was weird. You know, I don't know if that's easier with a software company, just because you know people are signing up, and you're just like, hey, I'm out. In tours and attractions, like you're just you're emotionally invested in like these people that come and visit the area, and you're showing them like your homeland and the cool spots. So kind of an interesting piece to it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think anything where it's more services than it is like a widget or a piece of code or something like that, it's a little bit probably harder to detach as the founder, but also set yourself up for a successful exit, which is what, businesses should do, is should create, a end of the road opportunity for you to cash out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I could see that for sure. How the founders of these events, especially if their brand is heavily integrated, like if they've kind of built out loud on social media and they're known as the face, it's a scale problem, but it's also an attachment problem that I think you've probably done a really healthy job on. How do you kind of break that down and reconstruct it and let the brand stand on its own, which I think is interesting. I wanted to ask a question about high ticket. Most of the really successful operators that I've talked to, the owner still is involved in operating a high ticket version of the tour. I think what this does is two things. One, it provides a high ticket option, but it also provides the operator slash owner a reason to go into the field and make it worth his time. So, Justin, who I know you're partnered with on the podcast side, he told me that he still does some VIP late night luminescence tours that are, $1,000 an hour or something like that he'll take people out. I forget the gentleman's name, but the guy that runs Ballooning Seattle, he has a $25,000 trip in the French Alps. That's a really high end ballooning trip. That's kind of, not only an amazing experience, but it's definitely not a $500 balloon trip. It's a $25,000 balloon trip.
Yeah.
So, do you feel like all operators should have a VIP or a high end, something kind of pointing people at the top and the bottom of the funnel, knowing that 80% will net out in the middle?
Yeah, I see that as being like super relevant and important for all tour and attraction companies when it comes to corporate groups, especially.
Yeah.
I think corporate packages, you want to have, you don't want to just resell your tours and activities that you already have. And there was a guy that spoke at that at Arrival that did a really good job. He mentioned, having your package that's unique to them, having a mid package, and then setting up just a package that's 5x that, that maybe they look at and they're like, well, we wish we could do that, but we're settling for this middle one, So it can be at any scale, really. Like for us, you're going to have people that are in the brand that just want to spend a lot of money. I think that's just where the market's headed, is you have a really good market right now for high affluent travelers that have a lot to spend and they want to spend a lot of money on a private luxury high-end experience, right? Like white glove. For us, we've been kind of like on these full day excursion trips, and we haven't yet developed our multi-day. And that's where for Southern Utah, I see like the really high end going, because we have places that we can drive to in a UTV like Daumangiri, near Lake Powell, really high end resorts. We have private cliffs right next to the Grand Canyon you can go to, and there's nobody there but you. So we do full day excursions like that, and they're more, $1,000 to $3,000 experiences. But yeah, I think the fun part is you can put out any product now. You could just put out there and see what grabs. You can spend a day building a $25,000 product, put it on your page, and at no cost to you, have it out there for your audience, right? Like you can pay for a text, blast it out, and see what the interest is. So it is really fun to experiment with that. I personally haven't launched like a massive product. One time we did build like a product for Polaris specifically. That was a 3-day trip. You go to the Grand Canyon, you get helicoptered to, a private houseboat. You're on there for a day. Then you go to like Zion and do, Slot Canyon. So we're definitely a spot where you can do really, really high-end trips. There's been successful companies that have launched that. There's one called Wilderness Collective. They do multi-day trips in a bunch of different countries. So I think if there's a market for it, going after the affluent customer and starting a business in that space right now is very, very doable.
No, I think you're right. I think
want to run it, fulfill it. I don't know. The fulfillment's a whole nother game, right? And they want something completely separate from the day-to-day customer. So I would say hone in their own stuff first. A lot of them really need to do that first. But there's a whole market for affluent right now.
Yeah, the expectations come with the high price tag.
Right. Yeah, the expectations. It can get. There's pros and cons to both. So I definitely agree with that.
So let's dive in a little bit on how you market Rise. So obviously having the credentials of a successful tour operator and yourself as a case study was important. But how do you get in front of customers? Like there's events like Arrival and you're going to another one. I know you mentioned you were going somewhere next week. There is the podcast that you do with Justin. And I imagine you have other content and thought leadership programming that you're putting out to draw people into the funnel. But can you take us a little bit through your B2B marketing funnel as someone who's not just attracting customers for the tours now, but attracting clients for the consulting business?
Yeah, it's interesting because when it comes to marketing, you go to different verticals and the game's completely different, right? Like um, another person I follow closely, Alex Ramosi, talks about that a lot. We're going to be going down to Vegas to his workshop next month, and I'm
Yeah,
super excited.
he's School, right? Or
Yeah, he
acquisition.com.
just started school, did acquisition, gym launch.
Yeah.
But he talks about, yeah, that you're just in a different game. So for us, when it comes to Rise Executive Partners, it's more of a limited audience. We initially started with, outfitters just like us that are doing off-road rentals, jet skis and boats. Now we're doing anyone in the tour and attraction space. And we've segmented it out mostly. Okay, we're going to give you a lot of free tools and resources if you're a tour and attraction company doing less than 500,000 a year. And then once you're doing 500,000 a year or more, then it makes sense for us to have a partnership. So we're definitely not for everyone. We work with companies, we have two partnership levels from 500,000 to 1.5 million to 1.5 million plus. So, and depending on where you're at, like the market demand when it comes to tour and attraction company can somewhat put a ceiling on what you can do, right? But that's where we come in and really effectuate a lot of change, either save a lot of money or grow the top line, just kind of depending on the business goals. So to find customers, though, yeah, doing webinars. We a lot of those times we are using those free tools and resources. We have Rise University where you can go in and watch a lot of courses, free videos. I think the goal when it comes to coaching, consulting, partnership businesses is to really have a lot of free tools and resources for those just getting started, and then being clear on when it makes sense to actually partner with you, right? Like for us, we would just have them follow along until like, hey, we can come in and effectuate change at this level and provide a lot of value. So for us, it doesn't make sense for them to stay with us forever either. Usually we started this 1.5 years ago, so we haven't seen like the timeline, but from other companies that I've seen, it's like 24 months. Really, you should have implemented a lot of stuff that's happening, and it might be time to move on from us also, right? So yeah, I think those processes have been super helpful for us to find people, besides like the typical thing of like word of mouth when it comes to coaching is big. I think it's never been easier to find your customers. Like there's just so much data. There's so many Facebook groups. Like there's just so many ways to find your customers for free. Like let the ad campaigns run. But when it comes to like nurture campaigns and like finding people and getting them involved in the business, it's just that value exchange, like exchange value. And maybe you're trading some of your time for, them to see your business and find that authenticity. But yeah, there's never been an easier time to find like your customers. Like even in TikTok on the new ads campaigns, there's tours and attractions now. So like select the dot, find who you need. And there's groups, right? Like on Facebook, we go and we participate and help operators, smaller operators. Like there's Tourpreneur, there's Fair Harbor Spark, like booking platform groups. So go and mingle in those groups and provide real value. And then people say, hey, I need a little bit more value. It's one thing to know how to do it. And our goal is to actually help you get through implementation, because we've done it before. Like we can go into your systems and give you all of the 10,000 hours we spent on making Bad Moose a company and really like just get it implemented with you. So yeah, that's kind of what we hear with some customers, right? They're like, this is the list I've been trying to get done forever. It's like, well, guess what? We're going to hold you accountable and we're going to get it done now. Isn't that cool? Right? That's an Alex Hermosi quote right there, right? Like I think that's what he said was, the greatest success is found in the work that you're avoiding doing, like right now.
Ooh,
Like
zinger.
find the work that you're avoiding, and that's what you should be working on. That's going to move the needle in your business. And that hit me too. Like that quote's just like, well, freak. Yeah, there's stuff I avoid all the time, and that's the stuff that's going to matter. If I'm
Yeah.
honest with you. Yeah.
Yeah. My sales manager, back when I was calling 100 attorneys a day back in LA in my 20s, he used to always say, look at all your cards. And, we literally had index cards back then. And we had like an accordion file. We'd drop it in the day of the week when we were supposed to call the person back. And he'd say, grab the card of the person that you're most scared of calling, because, it's either going to be an uncomfortable conversation. He's just kind of a hard ass. Like, call the guy first that's going to be the hardest call of the day. And then everything else will seem easy after that.
Yeah, and especially on the phone, like when it comes to sales, like it's so easy to build it up in your mind. Like I did phone sales for a while, and like once you get on the phone, it's just everything disappears for some reason. But like to hit dial, sometimes you're just like, I do not want to do it. I'm sick. I'm so sick right now. I do not want to do it.
Yeah. Well, the great part now is there are what are called AI assisted auto dialers. So AI
Nice.
will get 10 calls going all at the same time, and then hit you 3 seconds before you're supposed to jump on with like key things so you can be engaging when you pick up. Like I haven't used it. Yeah, I haven't used them yet, but on the podcast, I'm actually reviewing a product called Alley Oop and marketing partnership with them. And some of the stuff that they have is so sick on the AI side. It's getting gnarly for the phone too.
Yeah. I mean, it's never, I keep thinking that like, it's never been easier to win. Like you literally just need to put in the work and find something successful that happened and put it in your business. And it also works. Like a new thing I learned about this year from an operator in Hawaii was voicemail drops. And we got creative with the voicemail drop with Mad Moose. And it was literally my voice like, hey, it's Spencer with Mad Moose. Congratulations. You won a $100 gift card from Mad Moose. And we would send that to 2,000 people a day. And they all won gift cards. And they were all super, super happy when they called. Like, they're like, I never win anything. We're like, well, you won. And we would give them a $100 gift card. It got them on the phone. We gave them something like reciprocal. Like, they're like, okay, great. It's like, well, do you want to use this now? Let me just tell you like the new stuff that we have. We have boats now. We have jet skis. We have side-by-sides. Like you visited us 2 years ago. Do you want to use it right now that we can get you booked right now, or you can book on your own later? A lot of the times they'd book right then and there. And we got, I want to say, we did 600, 500 or 600, $100 gift cards. And like they kind of trickle in now at this point, cause it was like 6 months ago, but we got so many bookings in a week. Woo. Yeah. My staff did not like me because they literally were just calls every day. Like, I think it was, I don't know, 3,500 or something calls. Crazy.
It's flooded
the zone. Tricks like that. I mean, it's just, you get creative and when people are price sensitive and they're holding their dollars close, like the answer is just remind them that you exist and that you can spend your money on me. It's fine. We're going to give you a little bit of a leeway here, but like, let's churn some business and exchange value,
Yeah.
That was a cool one. That was a fun one. Yeah.
That's really cool. I wanted to touch base on the Facebook groups thing because I'm fascinated by that. I've kind of not really dove headfirst into Facebook groups because the first time I did it, I was like looking for groups, and then I would get like into the groups that I wanted to get into. And then the biggest ones had like a lot of rules and parameters about what you were allowed to say or what you couldn't say, or it seemed like the groups themselves were being run more for the beneficiary of like the organization who built and, was sustaining the group versus being something that was like an organic place where you could, exchange value that would then lead to potential opportunities. So, but then I became a member of a bunch of Slack groups that were the exact opposite, where it was just like all adding value, and you almost forgot that they were even being like run by like some larger organization.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, I need to remember that too then.
Yeah, the Slack ones are killer. I mean, I don't know. I'm a big fan of the Slack groups for professional. I'm really only active in two. One's called Behind the Influence, which is basically about 1,200 influencer marketing talent agencies and managers. So I'm pretty active in that one because that's kind of my day job outside of the podcast. And then the second one is called Fractionals United. It's 1,200 fractional chief revenue and chief marketing officers. And that one is intense. That one's intense. But if you can drill down to your sub channels of like marketing, advertising, like some of the more niche parts where you're not, competing for share of voice against like the CFOs and the COOs and the chief legal officers and the chief security officers, et cetera, then it starts to get more relevant. So I'm curious with the Facebook groups, is it the type of thing where you go join a bunch that are like relevant to your niche, kind of just go on feed and see what pops up and just kind of organically answer questions and add value? Like, how do you identify them, and how do you operationalize kind of a slow drip marketing campaign on the Facebook group?
Yeah. And I think there's kind of pathways for both, like a tour and attraction company or Rise. Like for Rise specifically, it's just finding where tour and attraction company owners are. Like the biggest one for tour and attraction companies is Tourpreneur. It's called Tourpreneur for tour operators and travel professionals. And the whole time we're just there providing value. Like someone will come up and ask a question. Hey, I'm doing this. I don't know how, this is the first time. It's like, hey, we can help with that. Here's a quick answer. If you want, more, connect with me and let's just chat. Right. And that whole call is just about us providing value. And they almost inherently ask, well, what are you guys about? What do you do? It's like, well, depending on where you're at and your, customer journey, which is our customer journey, right? Like if you're just starting or this, like hop on our webinars. Like we do webinars once a month. We do mastermind calls every 2 weeks. And we just spend an hour and just talk about like the state of the market, what's happening, tools and tricks that we've learned from our partners or that we've seen from, conferences like Arrival. Because not every tour and attraction company owner can go to these, especially if they're working in the business. There's no way they're going to leave. So yeah, I basically go on and search, and then I'll find other coaches or companies that are in there, or marketing companies, because they're looking for similar things to offer, paid ad spend or services. And I'll find other groups that they're a part of. So, you can look and see what groups they're a part of, and you go and join those. But it's all about like having a conversation, providing value to like a specific audience. So we found a few that worked good. And most of that has been around, booking softwares that they might use. With software, it's a lot easier because a lot of these companies have platforms now where they want feedback from their audiences, right? Like Fair Harbor, a big booking platform, they have their own Facebook group because they want feedback of new things that they're implementing. Like they want to hear from their users. So finding the software that the companies use, that would be relevant. If Salesforce has a Facebook group, something like that. Those are pretty relevant.
Yeah, that's great. I love that idea. I think I ditched Facebook groups as a business driver too early. I like it for like things that I'm passionate about, like cigars and like other, personal things. But I haven't really, I've stuck more to Slack for the professional. I think also it's my user behavior is that I check text and Slack before I even check email. So I know I'm going to see the Slack stuff. I only look at Facebook, once a day maybe. So I think that's also important, is how does it integrate into like your comm style and your workflow, and will you be fast enough to see a question add value before it's already like 10 people have already jumped
in? Yeah, because other people will see it if you're quick, like if you're first to respond. I think text, for some reason in the tour and attraction space, like text is, people have been slow to onboard, but man, it's huge. Like if you think of like just your natural instinct, like when do you look at your phone? Like, do you look at it when it rings? Not me anymore. Like I just get annoyed, right? Like I'm just like, oh, like I'm annoyed. Somebody's calling me. But a text, like I'll look at like so fast. My response rate is quick. So in our tour and attraction company, when we send out a mass text, like here's $50 off or $100 off if you book within 5 days, like having a time constraint on an offer, like the sales come in that day, like it's it just happens so fast. So you definitely can't abuse it, but like you can use it like twice a month and it's good. Like a lot of clothing merch companies for direct business, like that's just so good. For people that were ready to buy that but that just hadn't yet for some reason. And if they're price sensitive and getting a promo code, we would just sell,
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, especially if you're texting value, right? If you're texting an exclusive discount or an offer, something that's not just like a FYI, then yeah, that's super powerful.
yeah.
Cool. So I want to ask you about the podcast you do with Justin. So how has that been a driver for you on the B2B side for Rise?
Well, and I should clarify too, because with Justin, I appeared on his podcast. So
Oh,
I don't.
for some reason, I thought you guys were partnered on a podcast.
Yeah, should have. It would have been better.
Yeah, you know
No,
what, what probably happened is when I talked to him, he's like, man, I have like 3 podcasts. I have my kayak podcast, my operator podcast, and then when I was doing my research on you, I saw that one of your most recent LinkedIn posts
it was
was,
probably with him. Yeah, because
yeah.
that was just early.
So then I was like, oh, okay,
He's
Spencer
in
must
on
be.
there.
All
Yeah.
right,
So
that's that question.
yeah, I think it's just anytime you have a chance to add value in an opportunity, like whether it's a podcast or at a conference, um, it's just helpful, like getting in front of people, because people just don't know who you are, right? Like I think that's the biggest lie in marketing, is you start to believe that people know who you are. And you can text them, you can email them like for a month about something that's happening and they still have no clue. So like that ongoing assumption that people know who we are and have already seen our deals and discounts and offers, it just isn't true. Like with the amount of distraction that's happening now, if I think about when somebody's selling me something, like they probably literally have to email me like 15 times before I even like think to respond now, because I'm just so null to like being like advertised to about anything, right? So I think people have gotten so used to just seeing so much all the time, like the overconsumption of just information is so massive. Like you look at people's phone times, it's like 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours. Like they're just constantly being bombarded by stuff. Like the follow up is insane. Like emailing for 12 weeks before you get something in a B2B relationship is probably normal. Like, and it's not looked down upon. Like I'm not mad if somebody emails me 12 times. I'm almost more impressed if they have a drip campaign that's creative, that's that long, right? Like if I'm going to work with a marketing campaign and or a marketing company and they have an awesome drip campaign that lasts 3 months, 6 months, and there's funny little things in there, I'm just like, okay, fine. Like I'll talk to you, you know? So,
Yeah,
I mean, a little tip on the operator side, like just keep going. Like there's no shame in follow up, which was my limiting belief in the past, but man, just keep going. Yeah.
yeah, I like that. I usually quit following up after 3, and I'll send like some like, hey, sounds like you got lost on a deserted island, so I'm gonna go ahead and put this deal to bed. And then you'd be surprised how many people will come back your way when you kind of give like a funny takeaway, like
The ultimatum takeaway. Yeah.
yeah, like when you decide to abandon ship and you make it kind of funny, like a lot of people
Yeah.
will come your way. But yeah, I mean, back in the day before I implemented that 3 steps process, there were deals that I had followed up like 38 times and got the business on the 38th follow up. So I think, like you said, automation is the key. So you're not like having to like perpetually follow up with this huge, this huge, group of prospects that are probably like point of limit, some degree of limiting return on investment on doing that, maybe 1-to-1. But yeah, I mean, I like that idea because, I'm guilty of it too. A lot of people come after me as a sales leader, and I'm giving people the virtual Heisman, everywhere I go to,
Yeah.
not get tied down or committed to anything that I've had a good call about. I think it's just Pavlonian, I think, at this point. But I wanted to ask you about the conference. I know we talked about not meeting there, but meeting a lot of great people and having some really good follow-ups. What was the key takeaway for you this year?
Yeah, key takeaway from Arrival is that there's just a lot of opportunity coming. When it comes to the torn attraction market, yeah, we're back at 2019 numbers, and it was a little bit of a sigh of relief, like pending any real trauma with politics or, if we get a third hurricane, it's just like how versatile can the tourism market get? It's been insanely versatile since 2019. So to get back to something standard, and I don't even need crazy growth anymore. I just want consistency, right? So that was good to hear that it seemed like in the tourism market, we're headed towards more of a consistent, slow growth curve, which is great. Like I'm excited about reliability. And then I'm excited for the fact that hearing from OTAs and other channels, their biggest concern was how do we connect the right activity with the right person? So there's this thing going on in software. I've noticed this on a lot of platforms that I'm on, is they're getting smarter that we can get all the feedback from our customers. Like, why not learn more about our customer types so we can give them catered offers? Because it's super annoying when someone tries to sell you something that's, first of all, not relevant. You're just like, are you kidding me? Like, why did I even get this? So relevancy is a huge thing. So I think I could learn from that. Like, take time to send out, questions to people that have visited us before on what they're looking for or who they are. Like Airbnb did that with experiences when they relaunched. If you go to book a house or re-sign into your account, they're asking you questions about what you like to do, like all of this stuff, and then they can take that data and do catered offers to their existing base. So that was one thing. The other cool thing was just how to continue to leverage AI to give you quicker answers. So I'd already been doing it, and there was just a few extra ideas, I would say, because I've been using it with reviews. And using it as a data point, right? Going into my reviews and saying, what can I extrapolate about my customers? How do they perceive my business based on their reviews? But one cool thing that I learned was use that data to then come up with the key features and benefits that they're looking for. And I think as a marketing company or agency, like if you go into either a competitive space and there's a lot of reviews and data out there, like scrape all that information, find the key features and benefits that people are looking for out of those reviews and how they perceive the business, and then highlight that in all of your marketing material, right? Like solve the problems that they said were solved, pitch all of the stuff that just makes sense from their perspective of your business. So that was really cool. Like going through and doing that on your reviews combined with your competitors, finding the differences, taking advantage of those. Pretty fun stuff when it comes to that, especially as if I'm working with somebody and getting to know their business, let's create the right messaging.
Yeah. And I see you are running your own event as well. Is that right?
Yeah. We're doing an event. We're doing one local here for local business owners because we expanded a little bit out of torn attractions too. So we're working with property management companies, a couple other businesses. So we're doing a local in-person one, and then we're going to do a virtual 6-week prep for 2025 year. One of our key mantras is get proactive. Next year, the dashboard, the budgets, everything should be done already. Right? When it comes to tourism, you should be looking at 2026, but 2025 should have a budget for every month on what you're going to spend, how much revenue you're going to be doing based on past years. But getting proactive, yeah, who cares what you did last month, right? So let's look forward and make changes based on our business goals, not so much try and fix issues that we thought popped up last month. Or yeah. because it's easy to be reactive when you're in the business, right? When you have time to pull out of the weeds and look forward, it solves a lot of problems that could come up in the business proactively. So
It's awesome.
yeah, that's a lot, but there you go.
So what are you most excited about with the future of the work that you're doing with Rise?
Um, I'm super excited to like just help more people. Like the more people I get introduced to and the more companies that we've worked with, the more I realize like this is a true need. And I always go in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, I want to go start a SaaS company and make a ton of money. But also like to me, like real value comes in like changing people's lives. And I'm sure they're doing that, at some scale. But I like the personal level where we come into these family-owned businesses or a business that's been the same for 5 years. And some of our partners, like we've added $50,000 a month in recurring revenue based on like changes that we've made. And those are like, that's just super fun. Like when you get to a point where you're either, and that's like added revenue, not counting like saved expenses. So like there's so much money in expenses, like you can go off and make this whole new product and it's a little risky, or you can just save 50 grand by firing one person and like getting your organizational chart fixed, So I'm just super excited to help more people, especially when it's needed, like when people have limited budgets. So yeah, should make a big difference. Again, aligning like with impact, like that's just sounds super fun to me.
That's awesome, man. Well, hey, do you want to point the viewers where they could either book a tour or learn more about working with you and your organization as a coach if they're an operator or somehow tangentially attached to the experience or tourism world?
Yeah, for sure. So if you've never been to Southern Utah, like it is the number one place to ride in the country off-road. So yeah, you can literally take one of our vehicles in Utah and ride it all the way to the rim of the Grand Canyon and back on a private guided tour, or get as close as you can to Zion. Like we ride the fence line to Zion. So off-road Mecca, all of the companies come and do their hidden releases of vehicles here and never tell anyone. So it's like we see these like random vehicles running around. We're like, oh, that's probably next year's model. Because yeah, it's that good. Like I've been all over riding at different places, and yeah, nothing even compares. So definitely come out and have fun. First of all, like that's my number one goal, calling in life is help people have fun. And then yeah, for Rise executive partners, feel free to reach out. Our website's just riseexecutive.partners. You can schedule, a free boardroom meeting. We basically take a look and see if we add value. And we only find partners and add partners when we can. So super honest and upfront about it. We're not a partnership company where we can handle like 100 partners. We keep it pretty niche, 16 to 25 partners at a time right now. And yeah, we're making big changes in those. So super excited about it all. It's fun. 2025 is going to be awesome. Right?
That's awesome, man. Well, hey,
happens and we don't have like just a somewhere. That's like the only thing that I'm thinking, man. Jeez, I could
let's hold on to our hats. We got 30 more days to get through a major pivotal moment, I suppose. So
yeah, I mean, people keep asking for a downturn. I'm like, stop asking for it. Like, no, I don't want a downturn. Like, let's just keep going and have fun. But yeah, exactly. That's part of the long business, right? Just pivot and keep going. But
yeah, well, Spencer, thank you so much for coming on the show today, and for everybody who is watching along at home, wherever you're listening or watching the podcast, don't forget to subscribe or follow so you can receive future episodes of the show. And if you give us a review and a positive review, that's how the show finds an organic audience naturally on the podcasting platforms. And most importantly, if you know somebody in the travel industry, in the tourism operation space, or just a small business owner that you think would benefit from the conversation that I had with Spencer today, don't forget to share the episode. And with that, Spencer, thanks so much for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.